Hello, everyone. Welcome back again. I hope you've enjoyed my content I put out recently. But I saw there was a video by uh, uh, John Doyle on the visa debate on H1B and debunking the myth of immigration meritocracy. So, if that is the case, I'm going to take a look at it, and if there's a point, I'm going to make another comment. And I hope you are appreciating the content. Again, please like, subscribe if you are enjoying it, and let me know how you guys are feeling about this. I really appreciate it, and let's just get into it. All right, here we go.
Hello there. It's all according to plan.
Take this and come with me, King.
All right, yes, man. We got some merch. Nice.
All right, it's true. President Trump needs you to go celebrate total patriot victory right now at JohnDoyleShop.com. Everybody wants to be a patriot until it's time to spend money on alarmingly far-right clothing on the internet. So do that. But as we said in the last video, we had to do our separate video on this, the myth of merit-based immigration, debunking the H-1B visa scam, promises made, promises kept, all these things which seek, of course, to attack patriots. So essentially, over Christmas break, Donald Trump appointed a vocal proponent of the H-1B visa program to advise him on AI policy, this Indian guy who came over to America on a visa with Microsoft in 2007, the year of Spider-Man 3, of course, and people were understandably pretty upset about this, and that caused other people, mainly like tech bros, who gravitated towards Trump increasingly so over the course of the last decade, but especially in 2024, to come out not only to defend the fellow tech bro, but also to post a lot of, we'll say, provocative tweets about Americans, American culture, and the need for these H-1B immigrants because of these deficiencies in American culture, deficiencies in Americans themselves. These are people like Vivek Ramaswamy, David Sachs, all these guys in the orbit, and we welcome the support of anybody who wants to throw their weight behind what we're already doing, but we have to recognize that these claims that Americans are lazy, we require this merit-based immigration for success, that's deeply flawed at best. Sinister at worst. Like we said in the last video, you can't simultaneously believe in American exceptionalism, that America is the best country in the world with the best people in the world, and believe that we just need immigration. We can't quite do it by ourselves, suggesting, of course, that Americans by themselves are not actually that great. We didn't invent and build the modern world. We can't undertake national projects of world historical scales, and all these other groups can, and so we have to bring them in. I mean, that's obviously ridiculous. Now, I'm not saying we have to be totally anti-immigration, like, for example, if we let in, like, I don't know, 1,000 of the smartest, most qualified, most experienced people each year, people of extraordinarily high talent, like, I'm not going to be that upset about that. I understand that talent exists everywhere, okay? We already have a program for that, though. The O1 visa program, which is meant for the extraordinarily talented people. The problem is we have the H-1B visa program, and it's sold to us as though that's what it's doing. It's allowing for these extraordinarily talented people to come into the country and fill this talent vacuum that we have in America because we just can't quite get it together. But of course, that's not true. It exists simply as a program to displace American workers for the benefit of large, often trans or multinational corporations and the political left. And it seems to me that if you were really concerned about a lack of talent, you would simply remove the shackles which have been imposed upon patriots, upon American excellence in the last several decades, so that we can return to interstate highway projects and manned space flights instead of crumbling infrastructure and routine delays for domestic air travel, things of that nature. But of course, they don't actually want to solve the problem. They just want to...
No, they just want to bring in people that will just work for lesser and don't actually want to contribute to the goodness of the country, like the Tennessee Valley Authority or the Works Progress Administration or any of those kinds of things, which were FDR do New Deal kind of projects, which used American labor in order to make those things a reality. These are people that we are bringing over here to just take resources and use them for sending them back home or using them and not investing them in the communities of which they are trying, of what we have welcomed them in to be a part. There's nothing wrong with requesting that those who are here should contribute to the communities of which they are a part. And in contributing to that community, you're going to find that there's going to be a desire to help contribute to the country as well. So you are going to work manual labor and do those kinds of things to actually bring the country together, and you were going to keep the money in the community, and you were going to, assimilate more, then that is good, and that is what we should expect from people that arrive here.
To displace its targets further. So that's the general problem. The phrase merit-based immigration, the surrounding discussion imply two things. Firstly, these people have merit, and secondly, that we are in desperate need of that merit. Neither.
Right. That's a good point. So yeah, we have to break down, do the people that are coming in actually have the merit? If they do, okay, then we can have that conversation. But if we're in need of merit, then we don't need people from outside the country to bring in the merit, right? There are plenty of people here that are striving for merit and want to be meritorious, and given the chance, would behave upon merit. But if you're conflating the definition of merit with just so I can pay someone off or pay them cheaper wages, that's not the way.
Of those things are actually true. Not only is the merit that they have exaggerated, that's putting it nicely, we have no real shortage of merit in this country among Americans. And any shortage that we do have in America is artificial. It was created by the government as a part of the civil rights regime.
Yes.
Reminder, by the way, before we continue, all net job growth in the wake of COVID has gone to immigrants. It's literally been years since any jobs were created on net.
I'm going to look at that. Since COVID, he said. Wow. That's a damning statistic right there. Look at that. Look at that. In thousands, so we have minus 300,000 native-born people here have gotten jobs, and we have over 620,000 foreign-born that have gotten jobs since the advent of COVID. If that wasn't an unveiling of a plan of, like, we don't need native people anymore, we're going to just import people to do the work and the labor for less than what we can employ a native person to do, this pretty much lays it out point blank. I mean, I don't know how you argue with this, and that's Bureau of Labor. It's pretty damning stat. Wow, just wow.
For Americans. Just keep that in mind as we go forward discussing how these people were demanding the importation of foreign labor. It may sort of inform your understanding of the dynamics here a bit. So firstly, I want to go through a thread that somebody put together with a lot of general information about how the program actually works in practice, and then we'll get into a little bit more of the fun stuff that both debunks the idea that these places are producing any merit and emphasizes that we have plenty of merit here, plenty of merit to go around in America that we're producing, and we're deliberately ignoring it for no reason other than to displace Americans. Yes. I mean, that's the reason the system exists. It provides a financial incentive to businesses to displace Americans because that's what they want to happen. So they reward the businesses.
We have the financial incentive of making, we've incentivized bringing in foreign workers over native-born people, and that's probably out of some of the regime of the civil rights era, of which again was aimed at displacing the people that were born here in favor of foreign people on the basis of meritocracy, of which we have plenty of here, and we do not need to replace people here with people from all over. If the people here already exist, you don't need to make their lives worse by taking people from outside and bringing them in. I mean, it's a pretty simple proposition. Unfortunately, is it a zero-sum game when it comes to employment? I mean, you'd probably say no, but it certainly is pretty close to a zero-sum game if the incentive of the companies is to bring the cheapest labor possible into the labor market and make themselves more profits, keeping the profits for themselves and not for the American citizens. The problem is it's a downward trajectory. I wouldn't have a problem as much if it was an upward trajectory. When you bring in the people, like, it makes everyone's lives better. But the problem is that it doesn't. The problem is it only makes those people who run the companies, who run the financial incentives, who have the government's kind of in their back pocket, essentially. That's who it benefits. It doesn't benefit the people on the ground. And again, you're brain draining from other countries. If they are meritocracy, and you're not allowing them to develop, and then they're going to send you more people, and it's just, again, I'll have to go over this gumball thing. It's so good. I mean, it's brilliant. No wonder it's been shared so much, but another time.
By providing for them that incentive to do so. Because they hate you. Like, that's the ultimate reason this is happening. They literally just hate you. You ever hear that phrase, the purpose of a system is what it does? Ironically, I think it originates from tech. Basically to say there's no reason to keep claiming that the purpose of a system is something that it consistently fails to do. So, like, if there's a system in place and it's consistently producing a certain result, and that system remains in place and that result remains being produced, consider that the actual purpose of the system is to do that. Or you can just ignore your eyes and believe the words they say to you, which contradict your eyes. Well, no, the purpose of the system is not what...
Right, and this is, I've talked about this, like, again, society is supposed to have goals that are beneficial to society, and you need to have things that are incentivizing people in society to socialize, to progress, to acquire more, to live comfortable, sustainable, happy, fulfilling lives. If the system is designed in a way where that is not the case, despite the intentions being, and this is the government, like, the government has these high-minded intentions of, we're going to bring these people from all over, and it's supposed to make us better because we believe in high-minded idealism, that kind of thing. And the result of that is that we are driving wages lower, quality of life is lower than ever, people are unhappier, they are more involved with distractions and escapism than ever before. Then you have to judge the system by the results that you achieve from those policies and those implementations of those policies. Otherwise, you're just not being honest, and you're not going to benefit people. You're not going to benefit humanity, and you can't go that route because you're just, again, you're leading the downward trajectory of life and civilization.
All right, so we've got the H1B data mega thread. Guy says, I downloaded 5 years of H1B data from the U.S. Department of Labor website, 4 million plus records, and spent the day crunching data. I went into this with an open mind, but to be honest, I'm now extremely skeptical of how this program works. Here's what I found. So we have charts showing hundreds of thousands, easily over a half.
All right, let's take a look before he says anything. Certified applications. Okay, so 2020, we had more in 2021, which was right after COVID had really kind of become the regime. So we had higher, because probably a lot of Americans were scared, didn't want to work. Okay, and we went down a little bit. All right, I realized those are applications, those aren't actually acceptances. I apologize. So more people applied than ever in 2021, which is weird, rather than 2020. 2020 drop off makes sense because still of COVID, but then it kind of increased a little bit in 22 and 23. And then it's more than ever now. But is that because COVID is over and now people are like, now I have my chance and opportunity to take advantage of the H1B program? Maybe that's the case. Yeah.
Dumb. It's over. You're not looking at primarily like middle class salary range, which again, I mean, adjusted for inflation is pretty much what you're seeing with everything in this chart. You would need to see more of the greater than 250,000 for that top talent, which we don't have here. So we have to pay them. We have to, these poor people, we have to pay them so much money to come to America. Sorry, please leave your home country behind, to which you are so obviously loyal. We don't have merit here, so we're going to pay you
right
$250,000, $250,000 big American dollars. if you come and do the job over here. But you're not seeing that. I mean, that's less than 3% of these for fiscal year every year, after COVID. The vast majority, like literally 9 out of 10 of these are middle class or lower class. No, it's all, yeah, because it bottoms at like 75K, lower than 75. So yeah, this is just to displace the middle class. Certified applications by job category, yeah.
All right, let's take a look at this. Now, information security analysts. These all seem to be very much technical jobs. And I'm pretty sure, I mean, there's no reason for this. I mean, that we have plenty of this technical talent that seems to be in demand by the people, the corporations and the businesses, but this says the opposite, which is very strange. It was what if you were looking at this, you would suggest there would be a shortage in America, but as far as I'm aware, I've talked to plenty of people that seem to have the skill and talent to do these jobs, but the problem is probably with all the ghost jobs and all the other things that go along with that, is that it's just easier and there's less chance. Again, it's about certifying outcomes and making sure that there's not a chance someone could leave for something better. It's securing a slave. It's securing a slave that will do all the work and will never want to leave, because you can dangle this thing above their head and say, you got to work, you got to do this thing. Otherwise, we got someone over here that'll take it over, or someone in your home country will take it from you. So you want the opportunity for them to be a slave, like this. We have people here that can be computer system analysts. We have native-born Americans that can be system analysts, engineers and architects, computer programmers, all these things. None of these are in short supply, and I'm pretty sure we have plenty of technical American talent that would be willing to do these kinds of things. So,
to start with this program is massively popular with employers. The program has a statutory limit of 85,000 visas per year, but employees...
Massively popular with employers. I can't imagine why. There's a limit of 85,000, but they receive approval for more than 800,000. So they're over accepting of these applications.
Routinely receive approval for more than 800,000 applications per year.
That's
so
huge.
There's that graph we saw earlier with
huge.
the applications total. Contrary to what I expected, the average salary for the H-1B is relatively low, slightly under 120K this year. Yeah, exactly.
Really?
You're talking about middle-class salaries, which I know that might be weird to your...
Yeah. That's a middle-class American, I think, lives at probably closer to, I don't know, 70, 100,000, something like that, in this day and age. And this is that's like nothing. I mean, you can't pay an American-born person that. They don't want that. They don't want to work for that. That's, I mean, crazy.
If you have $100,000 today, you have $100,000. But if you had that same 100,000 US dollars and you went back to 1980 when that figure became popular, you've got north of $400,000. So you're talking about what sustains a middle class income,
Pretty big difference.
family of four, to the extent that exists anymore, the nuclear family. I mean, yeah, this is middle class salary range that is being displaced. Given that much of the H-1B debate pertains to tech workers, I incorrectly assume the average would be higher, but that's the beauty of data, right? Yes, but it was also because there's so much rhetoric around the issue that says that it's about this, very high talent that we just don't have here. We don't have hundreds of thousands of capable STEM workers here who can't find jobs. Almost all the prominent job categories are tech-related, software developer roles, blah, blah, blah.
Wow.
There's some more stuff about application data. Now, this is where it gets interesting. You look at which companies are importing the most of these laborers, and as it turns out, these are all Indian companies that import H-1B tech workers in mass. It's sort of interesting how that works out, isn't it? So you have Cognizant, which is
Is that the case? Is that so? Interesting. A lot of merit going on here.
93,000, and of course our friends over at Tata Consultancy Service.
Again, yeah, these are all things that Americans can do, and if they want to do them, all you have to do is just pay them the wage. I mean, how much are you really saving in the grand scheme of things? I'm wondering. Penny wise and pound foolish kind of mentality with this kind of thing. Your short-term gains of grabbing talent from overseas, is not going to exceed what the growth you will gain from having people here that want to, unless you incentivize it through immigration policy. That's the only way.
What jobs are these companies seeking visas for? A metric. Oh no. Oh no. I'm like Rick. I'm like Rick in that show Walking Dead when he finds out that Carl had to just kill his own mom.
Oh.
A metric ton of IT. I'm just like, oh no. The authors of Redditor. Are you kidding? This guy was on our side. He was a patriot. To summarize the end of it, you can see where I'm going with this. A casual perusal of the data shows that this isn't a program for the top 0.1% of talent as it's been described. This is simply a way to recruit hundreds of thousands of relatively lower wage IT and financial services professionals.
There you go.
America needs to be a destination for the world's most elite talent, which I agree with in principle, but again, you're trusting evil people to enforce that.
Right.
If you're talking about 1,000 people, and people are going to get mad, they're going to clip that and be like, John Doyle says he's pro-immigration. You're probably not. Okay, never mind. I'm the Anglo-Saxon. I can prove it empirically. We went over this in the last video. You are equatorial. That's your problem. Don't tell me I'm pro-immigration. So a casual perusal of the data has been described. Simply a way to recruit hundreds of thousands of relatively lower wage IT and financial service professionals. America needs to be a destination. We read that. H1B program isn't the way to do that. So true. I'm going to stop posting for now. Thank you. But let me know if there are any other visualizations. Thanks for reading. Okay. So thank you, Patriot. You did a fantastic job. Everybody talks about it. Everybody loves you.
Good breakdown. Excellent breakdown. And yeah, it seems to be, with the research done here, that is the case of meritocracy being the reason why we're having this H1B1 program is false and is only meant to drive society on a GDP line go up direction, rather than a society that is based on happiness, fulfillment, encouragement, and self-discovery. It is not in any metric of goodness that you can sustain. You can again fulfill short-term objectives of making profits, but societally you are causing worse outcomes for everyone here that you say you are supposed to be benefiting. That's the reason why you made a company in the United States, because you hopefully had an idea of contributing to the culture that made the country able to support your business. But you make a company that wants to go against the whole foundation of what made you able to build a company in the first place. And you don't get it. You don't get it because you have rejected history, and you've rejected the past, and you reject that there's a base that everything has to stand on in order for it to be supported. So you have to take that into account. Companies, Tata, and everything else. So keep that in mind.
I don't understand what I am supposed to do in this situation. You've got all these companies, all these English names, then you throw me Tata Consulting. You're not you guys are not good communicators, man. The PR, talk about IT firm. You guys are PR firms, but I'm surprised that people are surprised that we've taken such a big issue with this program, or rather we've been so vocal with our opposition to it moving into the second Trump administration, because it's so obviously incompatible with everything this movement is about. I don't know what they expected was going.
Right. It is incompatible because, again, all that they're about is profit. Profit cannot be the sole thing that represents society. It cannot be the sole thing that represents humanity. It cannot be the sole thing that represents long-term outcomes. Profit is as good as the people that support the profit. That's how you get it. Because eventually you run out of people that can produce the profit for you, because their lives suck and they can't spend anymore on your overpriced nothingness. Because you will create nothingness when you have a society that values nothing, which is what you are working towards when you argue that this is the way that you should go, when you argue that profit and GDP and line going up for infinitum is the way that the world needs to run, and you totally ignore the human factor of what it takes to actually make things work. You short-sighted, small-minded, nothing burgers.
Going to happen genuinely. I mean, the program creates this dynamic that forces,
for lack of a better
the
word,
mobility of capital and foreign workers to be prioritized over the mobility of, or even just well-being of the national workforce. I mean, that's like a fundamental violation of the principles upon which our country was established.
Yes.
Prioritizing the well-being and the mobility of the world over the American worker. I mean, it's a great betrayal, and it can't happen. That's why we won't compromise on this. Because anytime you make a deal,
every country on earth has a right to exist and a right to be where it is at the time that it exists. And its people, especially the people that were there originally, deserve to have a life that they earn and they can have without competing with the rest of the world. I can't compete with Indian talent in India. If I move to India and I try to compete with Indian talent, you know what the preference is going to be? It's going to be for the Indian talent. Plain and simple. If I move to Japan and I try to compete for a job for myself, and it's, you know, something that a Japanese person can do, I'm going to get less preference. And that's the way every country should work. Every country should work. And there are the small times where, yes, there will be a more meritorious person that will take that job from me. And they should be, they might be there, they might be available. But you can't tell me 100% of the time that there's always someone from a foreign country always better than me or my people or the people that live here. That is incorrect. I refuse to believe that, because those countries will not find the same if we all did the same thing to them. It would not equal out. You would say it would be the same thing. But the only reason you perpetuate this is because, well, we know why. You're racist. That's the only reason. You're racist in another opposite direction that is just for your own benefit, because you can make a profit off of it, because you can make money off of that. And it's ridiculous.
Deal with the devil, you've already lost. The only way to win is by refusing to play. I'm not taking the trip to Georgia. I'm scared. We're not going to accept this. You know, and I don't know what they thought was going to happen. Like, and then too, to double down on it by just calling white Americans lazy, entitled idiots who have no merit. Okay, let's keep score. Let's go over some numbers since you wanted to be mean on the internet. Obviously, average IQ is important. India has an average IQ of around 75. Granted, they have 1.4 billion people, so even if their average IQ is 25 points lower than ours, they probably have more geniuses because they just have so many people, right? Well, that's the scary thing about this. It's not just the law of averages and numbers. The distributions of the curves are different, and their curves are steeper than ours, meaning they have a lower standard deviation value than we do concerning the distribution of intelligence across the population. Meaning that they are concentrated more towards the average when compared to our concentration towards the average. So something like 3.6% of white Americans, and that's who we're talking about because, again, these are the people being overwhelmingly by design displaced by these foreign workers. So something like 3.6% of white Americans have genius IQs. So if you have 5,000 white Americans, statistically about 180 of them would be geniuses, meaning when factoring for total population size, we have approximately 8 million white geniuses in this country. Not bad. We can work with that. Now compare this to the data from India. We see that 0.02% of Indians have genius IQs, meaning that if we had about 5,000 Indians, statistically, one of them would be a genius. Meaning when factoring for total population size, there'd be approximately 280,000 geniuses in all of India. And I know I'm American, so I'm bad at math, but I'm fairly confident that 8 million is greater than 280,000. Hey, I didn't want to do this. I didn't ask for this. I didn't want to bring up the racist numbers, but you guys called me stupid on Twitter, and this is my defense mechanism. It keeps going, by the way. Did you know that India scored the second lowest in the world, 72nd out of 73 in PISA rankings, which is this like worldwide test of students' ability in math, science, and reading comprehension, and that they literally embarrassed themselves so spectacularly that the Indian government withdrew from future testing. Oh, but we have to deal with tweets that are going viral. People like, oh, our math is more difficult than yours in 7th grade. Okay, well, something like less than 40% of Indians even make it to high school. So I don't know, man, what do you want from me? Why are you making us do this to you? Why are you making so many unforced errors? Merit, need merit. Merit like when you outsource software development to India for $9 an hour and then your Boeing start falling from the sky. But I have to hear that Americans are just scared of competition. This is just DEI for white people. Buddy, you've literally never competed with us. Repeal the Civil Rights Act. Get the knife away from our throats. Let's see who goes the distance. You look at the performance of white Americans.
I think that's a good point. I mean, let's actually you guys want to go down this road. Let's unleash it. Let's go. Let us go. Let the leash off. And we'll see who comes out on top. We'll actually see who comes out on top. When you stop having government policy and immigration policy and visa policy based on people that are not here, and you put the leash on us and you say you can only do this much and then you can work up to this, and then people who come in are unrestricted. If that's what you want to do, then we're going to call you out on that. If you want to let us off the leash and take back the regulations and all those things, we'll show you what we can do. We'll show you. The American people will show you what we can actually do when you take the red tape, when you take the regulation, when you take all that off. And you're going to unleash something that you're not ready for, okay? You think you're ready for it, but you're not ready for it. And it'll be devastating to you because you're going to find out exactly where you find on the totem pole, because there's a stick-to-itiveness that we have that we will, if it is allowed for us to be successful. If we're not allowed to be successful, as regulations and everything else has told us, then we will adapt our expectations to those things. That's how we do. We adapt. We are very good at adapting for the environment of which we happen to be a part. Ask the Europeans when they came over on the ships to the United States, to a place they had never been and never seen before. They adapted pretty well, pretty quickly. So I don't know what you guys, you don't want to go down this road unless you do. If you do want to go down, let's have at it. Let's unleash the floodgates, so to speak.
Students on the PISA, it's among the highest in the world. Highest in the world. Again, talking about them since they're the core demographic and they're the ones being displaced intentionally by these programs. They have no merit. Okay. You see the same thing on computer information and literacy tests, reading literacy tests, mathematics, and science tests, literally everywhere you look. We dominate the world. We're way up. We're through the roof. And you would think that this talent, these obvious demonstrations of talent and merit would be nurtured and developed into something beautiful, into success. No, instead we gatekeep them and we suffocate them and give opportunities to everybody less qualified, both domestic and, of course, abroad through importation. Yeah, me when I discriminate against white people at every level from school to the workforce. Get owned. Where's your merit? Where's your merit, buddy? No, you actually. Where's your merit? I counter that.
You can't say there's merit when there's discrimination-based policies. You can't say that when you have quotas, when you have things like that says we have to have a certain amount of people and we have to reject you because we're required to have a certain amount of people. We're not allowed to have a certain other amount of people because the law says so, because our policy says so. You can't come back and say that's a meritocracy process. No, you're being disingenuous. You're being dishonest. You are not giving the chance to the people that are here, and you need to give them the chance to prove themselves, and you haven't given them the chance, and you put us down for not being able to prove ourselves, and you keep going the way that you're going. It's not going to be good for you when people are like, okay, well, either the leash is off and we're going to bulldoze you now, or they'll reject the leash it's themselves and then show you what they're made of. There's only two ways this goes. So there you go.
Is it in the room with us? Like, what is it about your merit that we don't have already? Why do we need it so badly? Why are we starving for it? Again, you want to talk about people coming to this country who are genuinely brilliant? We already have a program for that, the O1 visa program. And those people aren't in the hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of thousands.
The
They're much
O1
harder
visa
to come by
right.
because brilliance is obviously rare. It's the nobility in it. And we already have a ton of that in this country, probably most of it. American STEM graduates already can't find work. And when they can find work, they are paid less than what they should be, despite the fact that they are
Right.
objectively better in terms of performance, as
Yes.
the data has consistently shown, and it's because of these programs which Donald Trump was elected to stop. H1B doesn't give you those people. It doesn't give you that like 1 in a million type person who's genuinely brilliant. It's not even designed to do that. The program is designed to replace the middle class. That is what it does.
Right.
But its biggest advocates claim that, oh, it's bringing in brilliant people because they're liars and they're schemers. Everything they say about this issue concerning their quality is a lie. Everything they say about this issue concerning our lack of quality is a lie. Yet they screech and they cry and they freak and they attack you if you point out the fact that they're lying. And I don't know if you've ever tried to do business with these people in other parts of the world. You find out very quickly, honesty is not a universal virtue. I know the schemers when I see them, and they're scammers. You want to call us lazy and incompetent? You want to lie? Okay, I'll tell the truth and say that you're dishonest hacks. You're swindlers. You don't make value-added products. You scam.
Joker.
You iterate. You think it's smart to scam people. You don't feel good about a deal unless you're screwing somebody over. We don't like that in this part of the world. It's unbecoming. These people are incredibly neurotic. They're ethno-narcissists. They possess an anger towards you that you could never comprehend simply because you, as an American...
And this is the other thing. Like, if you want to come over and you want to take our jobs, like, I think to a degree we'd be like, okay, well, maybe we could probably accept that. But then you go and you say, actually, we're destined to rule over you and take you over, and you're going to be washing our shoes, and you're going to be cooking our meals, and you're going to be basically another slave class to us. Are you out of your fucking mind? What kind of world do you live in where you think that kind of speaking is okay? It is not okay. It certainly doesn't make you an American, and it certainly doesn't make you a citizen of my country with that kind of behavior, with that kind of attitude. No, that is not something that you can say is, yeah, we're bringing this in and it's a good thing. No, reject that. I reject that.
And get to be epic and have fun and like stumble into success naturally anyway because you're just built different. I tweeted this out. It's true. There are billions of people who hate you because you can enjoy milk, communicate with animals, drive Corvettes, and make blonde women laugh. That's all this.
Boom! Boom, John Doyle. Boom, that was good. That was an excellent point.
Is. They're mad at American culture and they lie about it because they'll never quite get it the way that you do. You stumbled right into it and they hate that. Americans are too focused on sports. They don't meme themselves into doing math for 12 hours a day like we do. I know it must suck to have to do that all day and still not score anywhere near us. Neil Armstrong, of course, a product of American culture, one of the greatest Americans ever, better than literally any person most of these other countries have ever produced at any point. He chose the less academic, less elite, and meritocratic Purdue over MIT simply because he liked the football team.
And this is kind of what I was like, I kind of made this point, like, yeah, like people from the early 40s, 50s, they were not necessarily huge, high-minded, those kinds of academics. They were people that, they liked football teams and they went to schools, and you come up with different outcomes. You come up with different ideas, different ways of pursuing things because you have different interests and they're individualized. And you can still enjoy football and still do decently, on tests and scoring and mathematics. It's not, again, working this constant chipping and forming and this kind of thing. It's a rounded, like if I want to put a lot of stock into sports and I put a little bit of stock into mathematics, and that's fine. As long as I know the basics, I can still become an astronaut, which is another American. Like, imagine if we had the standard that Vivek had, and we told Neil Armstrong, no, you can't be an astronaut because you like sports too much. How would we call ourselves Americans? How would we call ourselves people that have opportunity available for people? Like, he didn't. There was no messing up. There was nothing. He's known as one of the best astronauts in American history, and he wasn't a mathematical genius. He wasn't a guy who went to an Ivy League crazy high-minded school. He like you said, like sports. He did engineering at a local college. This is where you find people that can change things, which are in the flyover country, that are in the middle of the country, that you look over and you ignore because you're in your high-minded ivory tower and you can't get out of it. And you need to get out of it. If you want to understand America, you have to get down out of your ivory tower which you have built yourself into. It's the only way you can truly call yourself American.
At Purdue. You simply don't get it. We're lazy. Source? I have sources. I looked at the data. It says we're harder workers. We're on welfare less. When we're at work, we spend more time actually working. Hispanic men spend the least time. White men spend the most time. Asian men are third after white women, but still the gaps are large. White men are first. The closest group is then white women.
Those are
so if
good
you're looking at 40 hours a week, who's
statistics.
actually spending the closest to 40 hours during
And I
that
would say
week
that's
working?
true.
It's white men.
Like, I'm imagining the, statistics. Like, I think, yeah, I hate going to work. It's one thing. I hate going to work and being like, let me just stand around. Yeah, I'll look at my phone. Sure. But if I have something to do, if there's like a task, if there's an objective, there's a thing that I need to have done, I want to work on that task. I want to get it done. I want to accomplish it because I feel good. I have a good sense of accomplishment. Now, maybe that's just me and my upbringing and all that kind of stuff. But I think if you ask any white American, is that kind of how you behave when you go to work? I think they're going to say, yeah, there's an objective, there's a mission, there's something there that I need to do, and I'm ready to do it. Now, I mean, you could take a look at let's look at this. Time spent not working while on job. So when you're not on the job, right? There's a higher percentage for Hispanic, Black, and Asian, where white has the smallest because we know time is valuable and we understand that and we know it's for our boss or for ourselves and we want to work as much as we can in the time that we're given because we want to be productive, because we want to contribute. But you can't call white people lazy if this is actually true. I mean, if you call white people lazy and this is actually true, you have no argument. We are the least idle. So there you go.
Men spend the least time, white men spend the most time, Asian men are third after white women, but still the gaps are large. White men are first, the closest group is then white women. So if you're looking at 40 hours a week, who's actually spending the closest to 40 hours during that week working? It's white men, white women, Asian men, so on and so forth. Hispanic men being last is funny because people have this idea in their heads that Hispanics are like the hardest workers because they always see them on construction sites or something. But they'll be getting their six packs and everything. And we love that. We love Hispanics. We love taco bowls. Sure. We love street tacos. We love windows that aren't equidistant. We love all of that. It's a rich and vibrant culture. Keep it up. Muy bien. But yeah, there's a great article that summarizes the whole problem. It says, a new study published in the Proceedings of the National Academy of Sciences of the United States of America counters the persistent myth that the United States is falling behind in STEM. The study looked at the skills of computer programmer graduates around the world by using a standardized programming test. The study strikes several blows to the great American STEM shortage myth. The substantial advantage of computer science students in the United States is not driven by the presence of international students. BTFO'd, you lose, we win, way up. Collectively, foreign computer programmers do not bring higher skills to America. They simply bring cheap labor. Again, incentivized by the government, which hates its own people. So they reward these businesses by providing a financial incentive to them to displace the native stock, being patriots. And one of the problems is that Americans just don't understand that they need to go to undertac.com and give their money to our cool friends and get some cool underwear and some cool socks and some cool hoodies and some cool sweatpants. It's getting cold out.
Good.
You don't need warm clothes. You're not a man that Americans don't take into account is simply how many people are entering legally into this country every year. The answer is, of course, upwards of 1 million every year. And when you look at the polling that asks Americans what their ideal number of legal immigrants would be, only like 19% say they want it that high. And the majority actually said that they would want it to be less than half of that.
Yes.
And this has been true for decades.
Yes.
Americans have consistently supported reducing immigration levels, whether you're looking at polling from the 1970s, just a few years after Hart-Celler opened up the borders, of course, or in the
Hart-Celler.
years leading up to the Trump 2016 campaign. And we hear
That's a great point. I mean, if anyone doesn't know what Hart-Celler is, you should go look it up. Basically, it provided the legal distinction, the legal requirement that all immigrants need to come from non-European countries from the point that the act was put into place, and that European countries should be prioritized less over foreign countries. It is arguably probably one of the things that has changed America the most in the past 40, 50 years. And, you know, probably not for the better, because we haven't required assimilation. We haven't required any of those. We've drifted into moral relativism, and you probably could say, if we were bringing people over from different countries and we were requiring assimilation, we were requiring you to behave by our moral kind of means, then that'd probably be okay. The problem is you bring those cultures that just there's no incentive to assimilate. There's no incentive to become a part of the country. And so eventually it will overwhelm the culture that is already here, because it has no self-defense mechanism. It has nothing to preserve itself. The only thing that's there is the people that are already there. And those people become less and less because you import more and more other people. You see how this works? You see how this works? We have no self-defense. A culture only has self-defense if it can enforce itself. And it can enforce itself through shame, if it can't enforce itself through moral objectivity, and it can't reinforce itself through legislation, then a culture will wither away and die. And I want every culture on earth, not just the American culture, but every culture on earth is unique and vibrant and beautiful and different and should exist in its country, in its place and time. And if those people from those countries wish to come over, there are rules, there are regulations, there are things that you have to follow. It is not racist. It is not a terrible thing. And if you want to be a true citizen of the world, and not just a globalized, homogenized nothing blob, you learn the ins and outs of each and every culture that you want to be a part of, that you would like to emulate, that you want to see why it is so good, or why it is so prized, or what is so heavily inspired to make it last as long as it has. And if you ignore that, you make yourself less of a human. You make yourself less of someone that respects your fellow human beings, of less of the people that are around you. You have a sense of selfishness that you bring with you, that you are willing to profess to the point of destroying the culture that is already in place, of the place that you visit, making you a conqueror, making you selfish in your own right. And that's terrible. I would never, if I went to Japan and I tried to follow customs and all the things as best as possible, to include it, taking off my shoes, saying san, using honorifics, saying goodbye when I leave a public space, if in work culture, those kinds of things I try to adhere to and demonstrate as best I can. Because why? Because I respect the place that I go to. I respect it. They might not respect me as much, which is fine, because I know if everything fails, I have a place to go to, and I will be respected and okay, because that's where I came from. That's where I grew up. That's where I belong. There's nothing wrong with that.
so much about this national identity crisis, even from guys who, support continuing or even accelerating these immigration policies. And I wonder if this national identity crisis has anything to do with the fact that we have the greatest number of foreign-born people right now in our country ever. when factoring for all the illegals, and the highest overall proportion too, like
Good
as a
point.
percentage, or at least it's as high as it's ever been. It's tough to define exactly what your family is at Thanksgiving dinner if you have a bunch of people you don't recognize sitting at the table saying they have just as much of a claim to the
Right.
food as you do, right?
Right.
But maybe we
You have to have definitions. I've said this before, but you can't, you can't have society without definitions. Everything has a definition. Everything has a place. Everything has a purpose, of which something defines it. The more that you want to take away from that definition, the worse you are as a person. Respecting definitions is like respecting a home, is like respecting a place of you which you are a guest. Because you are temporarily taking a word and using it in a way that was intended by the creators of that word. And you denigrate it if you decide that that word no longer has any meaning to you, and which maybe some words need to go the way of the dodo if that's the case, but you have to understand that you're disrespecting the word as it was originally intended. If you don't understand that simple fact when you go out to use the word, then you have lost the point. You're trying to be selfish and establish your own implementation on what someone has already concretely taken time, effort, and years, perhaps decades, perhaps centuries to develop the perfect construction of what that thing is. And you can't just erase it at the snap of a finger. No. Rejected.
Born common than we think, you know? A majority of Indians say that their foreign-born population is too high. I mean, imagine how we must feel. Or don't you? I don't know. I'm not going to hold my breath. But to give you some context, on average, one Mexican immigrant brings in about 6.3 members of their family. Immigrants from China, India, the Philippines, they all follow a similar trend. And those groups together make up about 2/3 of all family-based immigration to the United States. That family-based immigration system, also known as chain migration, is responsible for roughly 2/3 of all legal immigration. So ending this is just as important as ending H1B, if not more. Of course, the H1B program destroys the middle class further. Like, it's already dying. It'll die without intervention. This is just the equivalent of like burying it alive, speeding that up a little bit instead of just leaving it to die. And the American middle class, historically our base, that's the largest and only real threat to the global libtard menace. Like, that's why they destroy your history, your future, your wealth, your political power, your sanity, your quality of life, your mobility, everything. And they do the opposite with virtually every other group of people. But all of this together, the immigration consensus with its blend.
Do not be mistaken. There are people that want one kind of person or one kind of race. They want that extinguished. They want that extinguished. I don't want any race on earth extinguished. None. I want us all to have our own place and time to visit at appropriate levels of when I reach my wealth, of when I can travel. I want them to be able to come and visit and see me and experience what I have to offer. One of the worst things I could imagine is having a family with myself and my wife and growing up, and if she was white, and us having children, and those children growing up in a world of which they have no one around them of which they recognize besides their parents. I don't think that's a good thing. I would say the same thing if it was a different race. I don't want an Indian person coming over here and then, or going to India and then them being surrounded by white people, like with colonialism. I think that was, their culture is theirs and that should be theirs. I wouldn't want any families. I wouldn't want a Japanese person in a Russian place surrounded by Russians. When you take it that way, like the first thing I said, of course, your initial reaction was, "Whoa, hold on." But if you don't extrapolate this, if you don't put yourself in those shoes of those other people, if you don't take those other things and then plug them into that same situation and you don't come out with the same outcome, you have to reevaluate your first assumptions. Everyone wants to exist. No one wants to die off. There are people out there that want this to happen, that want us to die off, that want us to be replaced because it is cheaper and they can pay less, because that helps benefit their idea of society, which is GDP on a land go up. Because we understand decency, humanity, civilization, love, and compromise. And a lot of others, unfortunately, do not. Simple as.
Of justification, all these concocted reasons for why this has to take place and continue forever. This has led to the largest peacetime demographic change in world history. That's not conjecture, that's not hyperbole, that is an actual statement of fact. The migration from all over the world into our country in just the last 60 years is literally without precedence in history. This wasn't supposed to happen, certainly not to us. Certainly when you start to take into account our historic attitude towards immigration. People forget this. Immigration restriction is as American as apple pie. Native Americans, beware of foreign influence. There is a deep history of immigration skepticism throughout American history, even before the establishment of the country. The Massachusetts Bay Colony began to prohibit the entry of paupers in 1645, meaning people who were poor, people who would be a burden on the public. And in 1691, New York required you to do the same thing, basically, to assure that you would not be a burden on the public. And the reason that the federal government didn't get too involved in restricting immigration up until the late 19th century was because at the state level, each state could impose head taxes on immigrants, which would basically be a tax to help fund the needs of poor entrants. And in 1875, the Supreme Court invalidated those laws and immigration became more of a responsibility of the federal government. And following that, there were all kinds of laws to prohibit all kinds of different people from coming into the country, from prostitutes to political radicals to literally any person born in Asia. It's a whole thing. So nothing really changed in America other than the politics developed after the Second World War regarding immigration, which have retroactively distorted this country's historical attitudes towards immigration, which were rooted in assimilation because essentially you had to be from a similar culture, not broke, so you're unlikely to become a burden on the public, generally of the same politics and faith, which is the only recipe for assimilation to ever be successful at scale. How we view immigration now is an invention of mid-century libtardism, that we have to be some beacon for the rest of the world. So Donald Trump, the real conservative, is returning us to a better American age when he calls for the deportation of radicals, communists, foreigners, foreign drains on our society, because as you can see, the immigration we're getting now is a little bit different.
2014, some Indian guy wrote this article titled, India's startup scene. Will VC dollars create the next Amazon? So that was 11 years ago. To this day, where's Amazon 2? Can you name Amazon 2? Can you name any company that's been started by these people in 11 years?
No.
None come to mind. I keep my ear pretty close to the ground with this stuff, but you can't really name a company started by someone who came over here on an H1B visa. So are these people really innovators, or are they just self-promoters? Writing articles, and they're pontificating and making these false promises to justify, again, their ethnic interest at the expense of normal Americans. So are they innovators or are they iterators? Sure, they've gained the top slots in many of these Fortune 500 companies. That's not nothing, but it's also just kind of taking the reins of what someone else built up from the ground. And by whom exactly? Who built that up from the ground? Who built those companies? Who are the founders of all these companies that we enjoy? Are they innovating or are they iterating? That's the question. That's the question. Some of these people innovate.
Right.
Some people...
Innovation over maintenance is one of the things that I said. Again, you can profess to be an innovator, but does your work actually show that? We see that you can maintain those companies, of which we just saw, but are you really changing the formula? Are you making a new thing? Are you inventing a second website? Are you holding another company? Or are you just taking over for the things that have already been there and you're just taking the framework and just running with it? Because if that's the case, that's not innovation. That's just maintenance. And America ain't maintenance. We ain't maintenance. We innovating. That is our goal. That is our character. That is our everything. American is nothing else but an innovator. If they are nothing else but an innovator.
People can only iterate and they can't innovate. But people will say, a bunch of America's billion-dollar startups have an immigrant founder, but all the people they're talking about in these cases are Jews or Europeans or East Asians. Again, isolated examples from particular groups of people. Not exactly the same as South Asians and Latin Americans and Africans. And India, by the way, doesn't even want these people. They're not like kicking themselves when we take them into our country, like, so mad. Stop it. Stop taking all of our merit.
Right.
No, that's not happening.
Right. Like, if that was the case, like, I'll be like, well, maybe there is something there. I don't know. But they seem to be like, nah, okay, sure, go ahead.
Sir, my friend, please stop taking our merit. That doesn't happen.
No.
But we have to make sure that we continue to do that. Because you notice, too, the whole H-1B debate is put the Indian government... in any case, it's not as though the Indian government is kicking themselves. They're mad at us for getting away with this and we're tricking them. No, they're actually working to make sure that we continue to do this, so we continue to take their people into our country. Because you notice this whole H-1B debate literally put the Indian government on alert. The Indian government is now working with NASSCOM, which is this Indian IT outsourcing lobbying group, specifically to protect the H-1B visa program from any potential impacts now that Donald Trump is king of the world again. Okay. So you might want to ask yourself, like, if a foreign government thinks it's worth their time to ensure that their people continue to come over here, to immigrate to America, work by the hundreds of thousands for remittances, nationalist, ethnic beachheads, etc., it's worth asking whether America is actually benefiting from that arrangement. More importantly, whether it means a loss of sovereignty for Americans, which, of course, it obviously does.
Yes.
I mean, look at who we're competing with on the world stage. Look at China. Look at Russia. World wars, communist genocides, famines, inflation, degeneration, and they're still standing. They're still themselves. Yep. Those are things that are certainly, unhealthy for nations. But they're not death sentences. No. Historically, there are two things which societies cannot recover from, and those are the sexual emancipation of women and demographic replacement. We are halfway there. We've already got one genie that we got to put back in the bottle. We've got our plate full. We've got our hands full. We got tough competition.
Oh, boy.
China, it's kind of scary. How many foreign workers is China taking in? Do they know something that we don't, or do we know something that they don't? Did they not get the game guide? If it's such an obvious benefit, like, why is no one else following suit? Why are these other countries not mass importing Indian workers? It's like, because we're not getting the people who designed India's nuclear bombs. They're doing just fine. They're in India. We get the H-1B workers, which are essentially like indentured servants. So the current system literally selects for liars and cheaters. And just increasing that number is only going to reward that behavior, like increasing the caps that we have every year. So the whole thing's rotten to the core. And it's only going to be reformed insofar as that's defined as a series of deliberate abolitions. It's never done its stated purpose. It's only contributed to the suffocation of real merit at the expense of course, Americans, and for the benefit of people who hate Americans or want to take advantage of Americans. What's the difference? Including, of course, foreign mafias. Here's one. In 2022 and 2023, over 3/4 of H-1Bs went to countries with average IQs below 80. And we're expected to believe this is just all about the best and the brightest.
Like establishing foreign beachheads and, like, just to benefit the people that come over. Like, it's not if you were to come over and you were to say, I want to benefit the community of which I'm trying to be a part. I don't want to enrich the country of which I came from. I want to enrich the country of which I am trying to be a part. That is the sole thing that divides your loyalty between being an American citizen and being a low-skilled immigrant. Like, you need to, if you want to distinguish yourself, if you want to move in the direction that brings you to American citizenship, you support the community and you try and cut as much ties as you can to the home country. When my families I came over, I'm pretty sure, which was probably Austria or something of that nature, they came and immigrated to the United States. Do you think we were, like, writing letters and sending missives and money back to Austria? No, we weren't, because we understood that to be part of the country of which there is hope and promise and everything else that goes with it, you kind of say, I'm done with the old and I'm moving on with the new. That's the separation. That's how you are progressing into your next phase of your life. If you're trying to cling onto this and then bring it with you and then support it Over here, there can never be new because you're always supporting the old. There's my rant.
Twitter thread, they received 52,000 H-1B visas since 2009, more than any other American company, and almost all of them went to Indians. And in October, a federal jury actually ruled that the company had intentionally discriminated against more than 2,000 non-Indian employees between 2013 and 2022, which of course they did. And all of this squares very nicely with the fact that every hiring suit against Indians is always successful because Indians literally only hire other Indians. Everybody knows this.
There you go.
We said this in the last video that we were going to talk about the fake credentials, the cheating mafias, all that stuff. I'll let you in on the dirty little secret. When an American institution vouches for somebody, that's quite often worth a lot more than when a foreign institution vouches for somebody, so that they can get into an American university, America, establish and expand their ethnic beachhead within the country, within its institutions. For example, it's an open secret that Chinese students in Western universities, they basically get like rubber stamped passes despite the fact that they often have subpar performance. They cheat. They often lack language comprehension. They even spy because universities are able to charge them something like 10 times as much for tuition.
Right.
Moreover,
our financial incentives are basically, and I, knowing this kind of stuff, doing a little bit of this reading, it's like we incentivize Chinese spies, we incentivize Chinese students to come because they have the money. They have plenty of money. Our system is built in a way that money is the thing. Money is all. We don't need character. We don't need morals. We don't need any of that. All we care about is can you pay the bills? Can you do that? And we measure our success by that. And when you talk about China, which has a huge GDP, which has huge amounts of wealth, which they can afford to pay whatever it is that an American college asks for because they know what they can bring back is a hell of a lot more interesting and influential and is going to benefit their society more than if they had just stayed there in their home. If they pay the small fee up front, of which we are short-sighted and which we look at and which we are like, ooh, shiny little object, ooh, yay, profit, ooh. And we ignore like, well, I could accept this profit now, but what happens if I, 20 years down the road, 10 years down the road, what happens if I accept this right now? We don't ever ask that question. We never ask that question. We just say, okay, you might be a Chinese spy, but you can afford the tuition, right? Like $200,000 a year? Yeah? Okay, cool. Come on over. We'll get you an Ivy League degree. We'll get you set up. You can apply for American jobs. All that, no problem. And then they send it. Then they send all the stuff that they learn back home if they get a job in like Boeing or some defense contractor, and then they take it back home, and then they replicate our shit. Sorry, I'm cursing. They replicate our stuff. It's just like, why do we do this? Because we look at the short term. We look at the profit. We look at the little shiny bauble in front of our face. We don't look at anything further beyond that. And it's ruining the country. Ruining the country beyond looking at what our feelings are and what we can see in front of our faces. You don't build countries out of feelings and 10 feet in front of you. You build countries out of like, what's up here? Can I look at this and reason and see all this? And can I see 100 feet down the road, a mile down the road? Whatever it is, not just 10 feet in front of my face, but further out. What are the consequences of this action if I decide to go through with this? We don't ever ask those questions. And we need to if we want to be better human beings and build a better society for everyone. Only when taking long-term things into account can we make humans and make human societies better for humans.
I don't know if you've ever had any experience with these kinds of people, but can we just like speak honestly for a moment? I don't know how you could have a series of interactions with the kinds of people who come to this country to participate in the Western academic tradition and conclude anything but that they're just like these AstroTurf cheaters. I mean, they have no insight. They have no original knowledge. They just stare. There's nothing behind their eyes.
Replication.
They just stare, but they're intelligent. They can navigate a system. They can maybe understand a system. It's something else. It's like an ability to think outside the box, to innovate rather than iterate. It's a certain intellectual curiosity that these people just don't have. But it's good real estate dollars. It's whatever. We need to talk more about the Chinese at some point. I know it's like a boomer, like Mochai comes, but there is a proper and necessary way to go about it.
Yes.
But it's just grad school in the US where they share tests among themselves, and with lower year students they use these Chinese websites that have like PDF versions of the textbooks with all of the answers included in them and everything. I heard a story not too long ago. There was an econ professor who developed an algorithm because he was trying to catch people who are cheating in a PhD program or something. And he caught, of course, a ring of Chinese students who were cheating and copying answers. Like, it's all fake, dude. It's all fake. They're just strivers. Simple as that. Cutting corners.
And striving, like this whole mentality of striving, he said it right there. It's just like, how do I defeat the system? How do I defeat the system? Striving is what that is. Like, because then you just figure out the best way to do it. Innovation is different. It is different. It is a different mentality. It's a different idea. It is figuring out there's a way that this isn't working and let me change the way that this works. Not doing something that's easily done. I could sit and study and sit here and for hours and hours and study one subject and become a master of that subject. But I will never be as good as someone who's already started 10 hours earlier than me. It doesn't matter. So the thing that you want to do in your own life is make yourself unique. Make yourself different. You can have that knowledge that you have of that particular subject and then pair it with another 20, 30 hours in another subject, of which Scott Adams has talked about a lot, like talent stacking. Like, that is the American way. We talent stack. We renovate, innovate. We are Renaissance people. We are not copiers. We are not strivers. Innovators. Innovation, not strivation. I don't know if that's even a word, but there you go. Take it to the bank.
It's the rise of the ethnic striver. It's a very particular phenomenon. We have to discuss that in its own video, but it's a very unique happening that we're seeing in the West. And it's so annoying, and it's so fake, and it's so gay, and there's so much to consider with that. And then these people become talking heads, and they tell you that you're a dumb American. And if you want to become successful, and you want to wear suits like me and walk around and wear suits and shake hands,
right,
you have to accept more immigrants, dummy. But then you look at how they actually made their money in his pyramid schemes and rug pulls, and it's all fake. It's all fake. There's no value.
And this is like Sam Hyde had talked about, like, it's about stealing. It's about luck. It's about all these small things that on their own can be okay in a society. Like we can sustain that. But when that becomes the modus operandi of a culture, of a society, you've lost the plot. You've lost the entire plot of why you came over here in the first place. Because it wasn't just to make your money however you can. It was to do it in a way where you benefit the people that are here in your community and everyone else around you. And you give to the community gives back to you. Right now, if I was to give to the community, there's no guarantees. There's no guarantees. In the old days, there was some guarantees there, but it's not guaranteed. It's less guaranteed now than it ever was, if it's not guaranteed at all. But that's the thing, is it's all fake. It is all fake. All this bringing in is like, and I hate. I realize I don't like. I won't say hate. No, I do hate. I do hate fakeness. I don't like fakeness. It's just, you can't build a society on fakeness. You can't build a society on fakeness. It will become less, and everyone will suffer for the fakeness. Honesty builds culture. Honesty builds society. Honesty builds people. Honesty builds humanity. It's easy to lie. It's easy to lie. Easy. So easy. What's hard is to tell the truth. To tell the truth and to behave by it. And it's not in your book of truths. It is something that is present, that everyone works for and is a part of.
Value-added product, but it all blows up in their faces every time. You notice, not to segue, this is completely irrelevant, and I'm not pointing fingers, I'm not naming names, I'm just a nice guy, but you notice, Vivek Ramaswamy has been absent, and in fact, I just heard today that he will officially not be involved in the Department of Government Efficiency. He's not going to be involved in DOGE in the wake of this debate and his embarrassing diagnosis that America is falling behind because we focus too much on sports and TV as opposed to celebrating merits. And this is why American culture is bad, and it needs to be enriched by, the rest of the world. So it looks like he'll be running for governor of Ohio or something, I think. I don't know. Yeah. Trump saw the storm that he created and said, "You're fired." Trump saw my video and said, "This ends now." And people are trying to use this whole thing to attack Donald Trump, which is what their overriding ambition is anyway. They just want to attack Trump. And so they'll justify it, of course, in any way that they can. But the truth is that Trump has been right on this issue from the beginning. He denigrated the program when he was first running in 2016. The book that radicalized him, the book that shaped his entire campaign in 2016, Adios America, has like a whole chapter just on the H1B visa program. So he clearly understands what's going on. And he'll say something like, we want people to come in. Trump just says things off the cuff. He said the same thing in 2016, a big, beautiful door on the wall. Yep. We signed off on that. Then you look at what he actually does, and it's good for us. He cut legal immigration in half. He goes after these programs that are meant to displace American workers. So it's like, who cares about what he says? Like, twice, by the way. What he does is good. Is that not what matters? And then people call that coping. Brother, I am explaining something to you. Wouldn't it be coping to just, invent things that aren't true and then screech about it when anyone replies? Would that not be the cope? You're already seething. You're already seething. You may as well cope too. Trump told RFK he's not touching energy policy. Vivek is not going to touch immigration policy. I don't even know the extent to which he's going to even be involved in the administration at this point. So just relax. Just relax. Trust the plan. Would it kill you to trust the plan for 5 seconds? We are in the driver's seat, okay? People can hop on or they can get left behind. And as it concerns the tech bros, obviously an important part of this equation, they may be retreating, they may be fortifying, they may be gradually coming along on the issue. I don't know if they want to fully get into this fight with us and lose, which they would. And I'd like for them to continue
because they have
joining the
because they have no moral standing. Their argument is literally based in profit. They have no moral argument against our moral arguments. All that they have is, this is good for profit. And maybe that worked 10, 20 years ago as the sole argument for basing society on, but we are definitely quickly realizing now that you can't build a society out of profit. out of being a profit-oriented society, out of being a GDP-oriented society. Society is built by people with customs, cultures, religions, and things that make people people and human beings behave in human ways that you would expect and incentivize or disincentivize. And it's not just based on the bottom line of what the company can make in a fiscal year. That's not how you make society, and thank God we're waking up to that.
Cause. I want them to commit to it because if they actually want to hire the best and brightest, that would mean joining us in attacking the real problem, which is the civil rights regime, which literally makes it illegal to hire the best and the brightest.
Yes.
And you can work around that by doing what they've been doing and importing Indians and Chinamen and other foreigners to fill these roles since they're not white. And again, it is literally illegal to hire too many white men. And even where it's not like nominally illegal, they'll still target you with regulatory civil investigations, and they'll make your life hell, and they'll drag you through the media, which is exactly what they did to Elon Musk. So you may as well just commit to the bit. You may as well commit to the fight. You may as well commit to the fight. Like, the choice to support Trump wasn't really a choice per se. I mean, you didn't really have a choice. It was about taking the knife away from your throat that the Brandon Harris regime was imposing. You wanted an out, that's fine, but it's not like you have a real leverage to work with. I mean, especially if that goal is something which is so obviously incompatible with everything that Trump's political project is about. Like, if Kamala had won, they'd be further strangled just as they have been for the past few decades, and they knew that. So that was the choice for supporting Trump. And if you want cheap labor and you're too scared to put a target on your back, like, okay, you can just say that. But don't lie.
Sure.
Don't lie. Because if you really wanted to unleash American ingenuity and innovation, you'd know that we have to do something about these laws that privilege certain races, certain sexual behaviors or proclivities, religions, and one gender over the other. And this is the real thing that nobody wants to touch, but the time for not doing that is running out. We are approaching critical mass. Again, these debates are unavoidable. These battles are inexorable. One side's going to win, and it has to be us. We're not going back into the box. That's just, I'm like the prospector. I am an awakened patriot. I'm an alert patriot. I'm not going back into storage. It's just not going to happen. And it starts literally today. By the time you watch this, America will be great again. We're officially back in Trump's America. I think they just pardoned the J6 people. They're getting let out of prison. So now it's the time to fight, fight, fight. Never quit. We must restore our dreams. We must dream big again. We must make our country great again. And you can start by going to johndoyleshop.com because the merch is back and it's live and it's time to celebrate
very good.
Total Patriots victory. We'll see you there.
Donald Trump built a wall. Donald
All right. That was pretty good. That's pretty good.
Make it great for us all. If you want to come, you got to come.
It's okay. I'm sorry. It's a great point. I mean, he just made it was a great video, and all those points were very well articulated, and it is absolutely true. Like, if you want us to be innovators, if you want to innovate into the 21st century, and you don't want to have a whole world of just rote copying, then you guys, you need America. You need American citizens. You need white American citizens that want to be here and innovate and help and do these things. And that's how you get a good society. That's how you get a good American culture of wanting to support the world, of we can help the world if we can help ourselves. And it's hard to understand that, but you don't just get to replace a whole people with another people and then say, those are Americans. It's not how that works. It's not how that works. It's not how the founders intended. It's not what Abraham Lincoln had in mind. It's not what any thinker of an Americana in the 18th century previous would have thought. Or 19th century previous would have thought. Some in the 20th century, sure. But that's not what developed the United States. That's not what made the people. That's not what got us to where we are. What got us to where we are is by having an identity, thinking of ourselves, and understanding that we want to make our lives better for our children and for our posterity and for our futures. When we were supposed to have flying cars by now, anyway, I mean, that's the kind of the thing. Like, instead of flying cars, we're having immigration debates. Like, this is There you go. That's my argument. Flying cars and immigration debates. Pick your side. Anyway, thank you for tuning in. This is the Human Advocate. Thanks for watching. I appreciate you watching. I'll see how fast I get this done. Probably be up on Monday. But in the meantime, please feel free to like, subscribe, check out my channel, see if there's anything else that you are interested in. And I hope to see you again soon. Thanks for tuning in. Have a great day. And remember, stay human.